Here now, Jim Trusty, former attorney for President Trump and former DOJ prosecutor. I'm not sure if you heard Peter there, Jim, but he was kind of talking about the fact that there's a possibility that Todd Blanche might remain the attorney general, might be permanently in that position. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think that would be a bad move. I'm not putting money on it because there are so many different names floating around already. But look, I think Todd, he's had a year of on-the-job training as the Deputy Attorney General. That's a great perch, a great position to learn from and to learn how to navigate this giant aircraft carrier full of lawyers called the Department of Justice. And I got to tell you, Trace, my bias, maybe because I'm old and because I was a prosecutor for 27 years, my bias is a little bit towards experience. And I think the president, and very understandably in terms of what he went through with Jack Smith and Alvin Bragg and Fonnie Willis, his emphasis is kind of on loyalty and boldness. And so I think he got a lot of that out of the now former Attorney General. And I think he can get a lot of that from a lot of people. But I just hope that the merits of experience kick in some too, even though that's probably not given the same credit that I would give it.
Are you intimating here that a person like Lee Zeldin doesn't have the prosecutorial chops for this job, that he's spent 22 years in the military, that he was running his own business, the youngest lawyer in New York at one point in time, lawmaker, but not the prosecution resume that you would hope for?
No, I'm not going quite that far. I mean, look, again, the Attorney General's not the one trying the cases, so judgment is a big part of it. And I think Zeldin, from what I know of the man, has a lot of good judgment, a lot of good life experience. Those are good things. It's just, if you've been inside the machine like I was for 17 years at the Department of Justice, you end up thinking, it could be helpful to have people that know the inside game a little bit. But, the problem is that touches up against the deep state that President Trump, dealt with in some pretty brutal years. So I don't think his instinct is going to be, let's find somebody who has a lot of federal prosecutorial experience. Bondi didn't have federal experience, but she did try cases in Florida, including death penalty cases, and she ran the Attorney General's office. So, my own personal preference is to have some measure of that in the mix, but that doesn't mean they can't be a wildly successful Attorney General.
Stand by one time. Jim, I'm going to put this up on the screen because this is Pam Bondi, her new social media post. She just posted this. Breaking right now, she said, quoting here, "Over the next month, I will be working tirelessly to transition the office of Attorney General to the amazing Todd Blanche before moving to an important private sector rollout. I'm thrilled about it, and where I will continue fighting for President Trump and this administration, leading President Trump's historic and highly successful efforts to make America safer and more secure has been the honor of a lifetime and easily the most consequential first year of the Department of Justice in American history. Since February 2025, we have secured the lowest murder rate in 125 years, secured first ever terrorism convictions against members of Antifa, shattered domestic and transnational gangs across the country, taken custody of more than 90 key cartel figures, and won 24 favorable rulings at the Supreme Court. I remain eternally grateful for the trust that President Trump placed in me to make America safe again." One of the themes we have seen from this Trump administration, which counter to the previous Trump administration, is there has been, Jim Trusty, this sense of loyalty, right? Even with the Kristi Noems taking a different position and Pam Bondi, there is this continued loyalty, no bad blood. In the previous administration, there was a fair bit of bad blood.
Yeah, I think that's a great sign. I'm glad you pointed that out. I mean, when you think about it, the first term, he was new to politics. He was new to Washington. He had to depend on recommendations from folks. This time he came into it really clear-eyed about what he wants from different people in the cabinet and in other positions. And I think it's a very welcome sign. And by the way, everything she said is undeniably true. Like, you could say, oh, this is all self-flattery. No, everything she said in that message is actually factually accurate and a really good thing at a time where the department needed an abrupt change. So I do think a victory lap for her and the president is worthwhile. And I also think it's a good sign that they have kind of what I think is a genuine loyalty towards each other, even after making an administrative move like this. And I just think that's good for the overall morale of anyone in the cabinet, anyone that serves under President Trump. And it's a reflection of high character on both sides.
Jim Trusty, great analysis as always, sir. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.